Woke up early in the morning, sun's rising in the sky. Got my Bible on the table, feeling that peace inside. The week's been long and weary, but now it's time to slow. In the quiet of the Sabbath, that's where I wanna go. Give me that rest, oh, give me that peace. In the arms of the Sabbath, my worries all cease. A day to remember, a day to be blessed. Oh, give me that rest, yeah, give me that rest. Family gathered round the table, laughter fills the air. Sharing stories, counting blessings, showing how much we care. No rush, no hurry, just a day to unwind. In the love of the Sabbath, true joy we find. Give me that rest, oh, give me that peace. In the arms of the Sabbath, my worries all cease. A day to remember, a day to be blessed. Oh, give me that rest, yeah, give me that rest. The world can't wait just for a while. In the Sabbath's embrace, I find my smile. A sacred time, a holy space. In the love of the Sabbath, I find my place. Give me that rest, oh, give me that peace. In the arms of the Sabbath, my worries all cease. A day to remember, a day to be blessed. Oh, give me that rest, yeah, give me that rest. As the sun sets on this day, my heart is full and free. Thankful for the Sabbath and the love it brings to me. With a prayer upon my lips and peace within my chest, I whisper thank you, Yah, for giving me that rest.
Shalom, shalom, everyone. Teddy Wilson once again here with Seekers of Yahweh Ministries out in Craigmont, Idaho. And welcome to another Friday Night Live of Restoring the Hebrew Mind. This evening we have just an awesome study set up. We're going to be speaking about and studying, taking this back from the English and the Greek to the Hebrew to see what was actually being uttered by the apostles that were appointed by our Redeemer Yahshua. Many times whenever we try to admonish, and I think where we have failed is the church in general and the Hebrew roots, whatever they are being labeled this month, have failed to actually teach on judgment, admonishment. What are those things? Because we've replaced those very, very important subjects of how a believer or a group of believers is supposed to act, not only to one another, but as a body of believers. Admonishment is key to proper growth in the body of Messiah. That means if you can dish it out, you better be ready to take it, because we are supposed to have our eyes and our ears open towards one another's actions and our speech at all times. Joking and kidding around is okay, of course. I'm just saying, whenever we are gathered together to worship Yahweh, we should our everything should be seasoned. There should be love, joy, laughter, peace. But there must come a time whenever we begin to recognize, if you will, one another's shortcomings. It's not a bad thing. Admonishing each other stimulates proper growth. It stimulates proper growth. And the majority of people today, they get so offended when you say, hey, brother or sister, did you know that, who are you to judge me? You know, remove the plank out of your own eye before you even try to look for the splinter in mind. You guys are familiar with all of that, and that is deeply a result of our views concerning the way most Christian pastors teach um, the New Testament, which we're going to be looking at first in the book of Romans, so we can kind of set the stage for the reason why people do get upset whenever others begin to um, reveal to them that maybe there's something that they could better in their walk, or something we should remove from our walk, um, something we should add to our walk. The majority of the time, we get confronted with a confrontational spirit, a confrontational attitude from other believers as to, I've got one that leads and guides me, and that's him. Okay, so the body of Messiah has nothing to do with it. You're led by the Spirit. That's it. That means you can have no faults because the Spirit's leading you all the time. If that's the way you believe, then we'll see how that works out for you. Of course, the Ruach HaKodesh, or the almighty essence of Yahweh, is Ruach. It is Spirit, but it has breathed words that we are supposed to use in the assemblies to help the assemblies grow, the headship grow, and the sheep grow in divine wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And today, pride, haughtiness, and the lack of the will and desire to better ourselves prior to the coming of Mashiach, or us going into the dirt, we're in a very sad state in that realm in the body of Messiah, in my humble opinion. So we're going to be going to Romans chapter 14. Everybody can go there and get ready to read it, and I'm going to be pulling up a Christian view of Romans chapter 14 in beginning, so I can show you the two diabolical differences of what is actually being said there, versus with theology versus the true words and definitions, if you will, that were meant to be conveyed through the Spirit of Yahweh to us by the apostles. And so everybody get your pens and your paper, your highlighters and everything ready. We're going to get prayed in real quick, and then we're going to get right to it this evening. Heavenly Father, we, your people, come before you, and we humble ourselves. We bow ourselves before you. You are the mighty one of the world, of the earth, of the universe. You have provided redemption to all of your people. You have not only created everything that we know of, but have blessed us, even though we cursed you. Even though we were disobedient to your wishes and your will for our life, you still have an open door through Yahshua for us to come back to you. We are so thankful for that redemption today that you have provided in the body of Yahshua. We thank you for all of those who recently have came into the body through their immersion. We also thank you for the desire and the passion that you have placed within them to continue to grow and come to a deeper understanding of who and what you are in their lives. As we begin to study your word this evening, we just ask that you would be our guide, that you would open up our understanding, and that you would help us to look at one another in the body of Yahshua as if we need one another, because we truly do. You work through your people to bring comfort, to chastise, to rebuke, to correct, and to bring joy and love and peace in your spirit. So we ask that all of those things would be made manifest this evening as we study your word. Father, open our eyes and our ears that we, your people, can serve you and worship you in a way that is becoming of people that are called the children of Yahweh. And we ask and pray all of this in the mighty name of your redemption, Yahshua. Hallelujah and amen. Amen. All right. So before we get into the text in Romans chapter 14, I'm going to be pulling up Just some commentary that anybody can have access to if they were to uh, Google such things as what is meant by the Apostle Paul's address in Romans 14, so on and so forth. You could Google things like that, and things like this will pop up. And I want to first point out the error and the reason why people begin to even if they do try to apply it to their life, they apply it, or their walk in Messiah, they apply it incorrectly. And it's because of what we've been taught about certain passages in the English Bible. So first I'm going to be pulling up a little information on that chapter. So I was Googling, who are you to judge another man's servant, which is in Romans 14. And let's take a close look at some of the stuff that came up. I want to point this out briefly before we begin to break this down in the Greek and see what was actually being conveyed. So a lot of the information will be packed with Christian phenomena, if you will, such as these. The phrase, who are you to judge another man's servant, is a biblical quote from Romans 14:4, emphasizing, listen to what they say, emphasizing that individuals should not judge or criticize the actions of others. We're going to look at some passages that totally contradicts whoever wrote this article that we're looking at now. They say it's emphasizing that individuals should not judge or criticize the actions of others, as each person is accountable to Yahweh, not others. That's not necessarily true. Our accountability in the end, as in moving into the kingdom of Yahweh behind his redemption, that can be calculated and determined by nobody else. Can everybody see the I pray everybody can see this. I'm getting reports that, oh wow. Okay, well, let me try to pull this up once again before we okay, let me try to pull this up once again. Let's try this one more time. Thank you guys for letting me know that it wasn't sharing correctly. I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to re-pull and repost it. Let me know if you guys are seeing it now. I don't know. I refreshed all of the browsers, so prayerfully it is now working. Let me know for sure before we get started. And I do apologize for that technical glitch. Is it working now? Somebody please text me and let me know. I can't see the screen that you guys are looking at or the chat section. All I can see is what I'm trying to share. So please send me a text message or a message on Messenger. Okay, thank you guys. All right, so now we're seeing who are you to judge another man's servant? Amen. Thank you, thank you. Um, it's a powerful reminder that we should not criticize or judge the actions of others, as ultimately everyone is accountable to Yahweh. Now, I'm going to drop this down. Once we start studying this, it's so plain. First and foremost, I want to say that there are two different Greek and Hebrew words, and there may be a few more, but the majority of the time that judgment and right ruling are talked about. In most English Bibles, though, the word for right ruling or rightly ruling or making things right, and the word for judge, as in somebody judging your soul, which only Yahweh can do. Those are two separate Hebrew words, and they've both been translated as judge or judgment. So that's where the problem actually is rooted. And then we have all these doctrines that have stemmed from those mistakes. Okay, we're going to correct some of that this evening. So it says the context here of that verse, which is chapter 14 in Romans, and at verse 4, the verse is part of a larger section in Romans 14 that deals with disagreements and differences of opinion among believers, particularly regarding food laws and days of observance. That's not true. I'm going to show you guys that the food laws, the dietary laws is not what is being spoken about there, and neither is the observance of Sabbath versus Sunday. And so get your scriptures open, because that's not what's being spoken about, and I'm going to take you to the text to prove that. All right. So now we see where everything stems from, all of our preconceived notions as to the way this should read. But let's take a look through the eyes of a Hebrew thoughts, Hebrew definitions, as we search, go back upstream, if you will, from the English and Greek nanopool of definitions. And let's see what was being defined by the apostle. Let's go to Romans chapter 14. We're going to be reading verses 1 through 6 to gather all the context that we need. Then we'll begin to break it down. It says, and receive him who is weak in the faith or the belief. Now, this word weak goes back to somebody who isn't as educated, somebody who's new to the faith, if you will. It doesn't mean that some weakling that is not able to take care of himself, even though he has the knowledge. That is an improper view of what is being spoken about here. So, and receive those who haven't been in the faith as long as you have. Not criticizing their thoughts. One indeed believes that they added food, okay, that they can eat all if food is added, but he who is weak eats only vegetables. Everyone, this is not talking about the food laws in Leviticus chapter 11. This is talking about vegetarianism versus people who eat vegetables and meat. Eating meat and just vegetarianism. If you look at the groups of people in that part of the world that was receiving the good news in that time period, many of the sects of people were vegetarian, if you will, vegan, and the argument was, as you can see, the food offered to idols and subjects like that. It didn't have anything to do with the food laws, kosher. What it had to do with was vegetarian vegetarianism versus people who eat meat and food offered to idols. So it had nothing to do with what Yahweh had called clean or unclean per se. So let's continue on. He that eats meat, things that Yahweh said you could eat. All right. Now there's some meats that Yahweh said you're not supposed to eat. And this is not speaking about that. It's speaking about specific things. He that eats, let him not despise him who does not eat. And he that does not eat, let him not judge him who eats. For Yahweh received him. Whether you're a vegetarian or a meat eater, those things should not stand in between the brethren. And if you eat meat and somebody younger in the faith is offended by that, then just don't eat meat until they catch the revelation in the study of Torah and in the study of the Hebrew language, so on and so forth. Because Messiah is what is important, and keeping the commandments is what is important. If we let little things that we try to interject into Yahweh's word bring division, and we that have been in the faith a long time know better, we should just say, okay, brother, for conscience sake, and for not only for conscience sake, but for the sake of us continuing to learn with one another, so that you can grow. You know what? I don't have to eat meat. What? It's not that important. So, till they catch the revelation, new ones in the faith, we are supposed to look past some of the things that they have not had revealed to them yet. But as long as it does not lead them or ourselves into some sort of idolatry or sin, then we have to address those types of things without a doubt. Again, in verse 4, who are you that judges another's servant? To his own master he stands or falls, but he shall be made to stand, for Yahweh is able to make him stand. So to you older people out there, if they haven't caught that revelation about that certain thing that you have a pet peeve with, get over it. The most important thing is nurturing this brother or sister or a family, somebody new to the belief, with truth. That is what's most important. And I'm not saying that you should allow people to come into your home on Shabbat or your assemblies on Shabbat and bring ham sandwiches. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that where things can be looked over, they should be looked over in those situations. There's a time to enforce things and settings where things need to be enforced, so that everybody that is coming into the faith sees how serious we are about representing Yahweh, our Father, correctly. But also at the same time, we have to have that lenience to sway in the direction of helping them before we criticize them. That's what this passage is about. So the people that use over and over for years have been in the faith and use this passage, who are you to judge another man? Who are you to judge me? They're in error as well. They are manipulating and using this passage out of context in order to continue to feel okay about their own shortcomings, because we are trying to admonish, not judge. But if people don't know the difference of those definitions of what is admonishment versus judgment, then we'll never get anywhere. There'll always be arguments, and so we're gonna eliminate that tonight, and we're gonna look up the definitions of this all the way back into the ancient Hebrew so that we can see exactly what was being conveyed by the Hebrew mind that was on the other side of the pen that wrote not only Romans 14, hallelujah, but most of the passages that we're going to be over, except for the ones that are in the Old Testament or the Tanakh. And then it says in verse 5, one indeed judges one day above another, another judges every day alike. Let each one be completely persuaded in his own mind. Okay, this is not talking about Sabbath versus Sunday. The Brit Hadashah or the New Testament gives you the answer as to what, and the history behind it gives you the answer to what was being spoken about here, what was being addressed. Remember, Shaul was a Pharisee, and the Pharisees were coming in behind him everywhere he went and trying to get people to adhere to Phariseeism on top of believing in the Messiah. So all of the Pharisees and the majority of the people in the headship in the temple in the first century, whenever Yahshua walked the earth, they had a custom that they had, where there was one school of people who said, well, we're going to fast once a week. This day is the one we choose. And some chose to do it on this day. And so that was being intermingled into the good news that was being ministered to the people outside of the land of Judea whenever they were going out to make converts. Okay, so it wasn't an argument over Sunday versus Saturday worship. Nobody has the right to change Saturday. Yahweh ordained it in Genesis chapter 2, and nobody has the right to override Yahweh's word. That is the first set apart gathering mentioned in Leviticus 23. The Moedim, many of you knowing the Hebrew language know, it means a holy convocation. The Sabbath is the first one. The seventh-day Sabbath is ordained by Yahweh. The Pope or nobody else has the right to change that. Of course, you can worship him all the days of your life, but when he has called us to gather corporately is Saturday. Yahweh's Shabbat, his seventh day Shabbat. Now, so here is some proof of that in Scripture. Let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 18. Luke chapter 18. Let's pick up verse 10 through 13. Two men went up into the set apart place to pray. The one was a Pharisee, and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and began to pray with himself this way: Eloah, I thank you that I am not like the rest of men, swindlers, unrighteous, adulterers, or even this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. But the tax collector, standing at a distance, would not even raise his eyes unto the heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, Yahweh, show favor unto me, a sinner. So here we see that there were certain days during the week that Pharisees proclaimed that there should be a fast. It was a man-made tradition, and some believed that it should be on this day and this day versus this day and that day. So what's being spoken about in the book of Romans by a Pharisee named the Apostle Paul or Shaul, that was what he was speaking about. If you know the customs of the Hebrew people, it makes perfect sense. But we're going to be focusing on, who are you to judge me? It doesn't say that. It says, who are you to judge another man's servant? Okay, so in order to understand what's going on here, we're going to be looking at the Greek text, and we're also going to be doing some Hebrew word studies, and we're going to show you these words that have been mistranslated, bringing the inability to rightly divide or rightly discern or to rightly handle, uh, to rightly portray to others what is being said. In other words, if we've got the wrong definition, there's no way that we can convey to you the truth. What was defined by the Ruach of Yahweh, the Spirit of Yahweh, through the apostles or the prophets or Moses or anybody else he's using in the body of Yahshua, as far as that goes, if we have not received the proper defining definitions ourselves, how can we preach you truth? It's impossible. It's one of the biggest word games ever instilled into Yahweh's creation by the enemy, is when he took advantage of Yahweh chastising us for building that Tower of Babel. He has taken a priority in using the our inability to speak the same language and define words the same exact way, and he's used that to trump false doctrine all throughout time. So we must restore the mind of Yahweh's people back to the Hebrew definitions, or we've done nothing. We can sit here and argue over English verses, for a millennia and never get nobody into the truth, nobody into the kingdom, unless we properly define the words that Yahweh said unto us through the prophets and the apostles. So, focusing on verse 4 back in Romans, I'm going to take you to the Greek text, and we're going to look at the definitions here, and we're going to see what Hebrew words pop up that the Greek came from. Praise Yah. This is the most simple, accurate stuff to bring to revelation. Like 90% of all truth is through simple little word studies like this that totally contradict the doctrine of the majority of Christian doctrine that is presented to us. I showed you that what the commentator said that it meant in Romans 14, and now we see that that's not what the scriptures declare, that that's not what the Apostle Paul was speaking about at all. And I would also like to point out that he wasn't saying that we shouldn't judge one another's actions. He was not saying that. That is another false teaching that is killing people left and right, not allowing them to be admonished by one another. So let's go ahead and go to the Greek text in Romans 14 and verse 4. I'm going to say it's this one. I might have not brought it back yet. Let's go ahead and take a look. Is that the correct one? Nope, it's not. Let me try this one. Hang in there with me. I was doing all these studies today before I left the house and just came back. That's why I had to refresh everything. I've been setting all day while I've been gone. Let's try this one. Here we go. All right. So here you see Romans 14:4 in the Greek. And here is their broken word for word from Greek to English translation in this column here. It says, you who are judging, you see that's number 2919, another's servant. To the own master he stands or falls. He will be upheld, however, able is for the master to uphold him. So that's the broken English word for word. And here is our word in question. Who are you to judge? This is the Greek word krino. Then it says, look at this, to judge, decide, to come to the determination. Okay, this is the last process of either two situations. It's the last process of rightly ruling, which is mishpat, not this word that this comes from here, shaphat. Hebrew number 8199 is how where this Greek word is linked to when it comes to the Old Testament. So there's two different time periods as this is executed. One is when the judgment, as in you can or cannot come into the kingdom. That is solely Yahweh's job when it comes to people's right to enter the kingdom. We don't have the right to do that. But we do have the right to look at the right ruling, look at the situation, and say, well, the word says this, and then the word says to do this, or not do this or that. And then you come to that shaphat. Then you bring the judgment, but you never do the judgment yourself because all of those things are already written. So when you rightly rule, the shaphat will be the very last thing that takes place. And shaphat from Yahweh will be the very last place or thing that takes place before you or I either come into the kingdom or go into the burning lake of fire. Okay, so we need to understand there's two different types of judgment. And every now and then, this Hebrew number 1777, it's the Hebrew word din, meaning to judge, as in contending or pleading. So it's just part of the process. So the majority of the time, whenever we're talking about judging someone or judging situations, that is not the correct word. It will be this word here, Hebrew number 8199, shaphat. Okay, now, so having came to those definitions, let's read Romans 14:4 again. And remember the context. Matter of fact, let's just start at verse 1 again. And receive him who is new to the faith, not criticizing his thoughts. One indeed believes to eat all. Foods was added. It's not talking about foods. It's talking about meat and vegetables. But he who is new to the faith eats only vegetables. He says when you have a vegetarian that comes into the faith and he hasn't caught the revelation yet, don't judge him. Do not shaphat him. It's not. It's just talking about the things that are already written in the word. Don't come to your final decision because he's too new in the faith in order to bring judgment upon him. Give them time to be nurtured by a true teacher, one who knows the word of Yah, one who knows how to implement the word of Yah, how to rightly handle the word of Yah, and how to present it when he feeds Yahweh's sheep. Give it time. Don't be so condemning. That doesn't mean that there should be a year of no growth that you just blink an eye at. No, there should be constant patterns of growth throughout one's walk, year to year. As we go around to the next season, to the next Moedim, to the next Passover, to the next unleavened bread, to the next tabernacles, we should see growth in between all of those things. And if we aren't, something is wrong with the way that person is being shared the word, or the way they are receiving or not receiving the word. That's when admonishment must be known how to be implemented into the situation. And because we don't have teachers out there that teach on admonishment frequently enough, then we just lump that all together with judging. Because Yahweh has received him into the body of Messiah, right there at the end of verse 3. Again, he that eats, let him not despise him who does not eat, and he that does not eat, let him not judge him who eats, for Yahweh received him. Okay, so it's talking about vegetarianism versus other foods that are declared food in Leviticus chapter 11. Who are you that brings that deciding judgment? We must rightly rule the situation. Mishpat, I'm going to show you the difference here in a moment. And then we're going to use other passages. We've talked about this in the past, but we're going to get a little deeper into this evening so that you guys have something more to go on and show one another whenever these types of situations arise within the body of believers that you may be fellowshipping with. Who are you that judges? This is talking about putting that final decision. Another's servant. To his own master he stands or falls, but he shall be made to stand, for Yahweh is able to make him stand. Why? Because this person is going to be led properly, prayerfully, by the headship that has been ordained and anointed by Yahweh or Yahshua. And they will be led through the Torah portions, and there'll be discussions about Leviticus chapter 11, what is clean, what is unclean, why we can or cannot eat certain things. That's where the growth has to be left to the Spirit. But if there is no growth over a period of a year, then some type of admonishment must take place. So, verse 4 is in reference to Shaphat, not Mishpat, right? It's because of the lack of Mishpat there in Rome that was going on that the apostle had to remind them, don't be too critical. Give enough time for growth. Continue to admonish. Bring it up. Show them a little bit at a time. But if it's going to be a separation because you refuse to not eat meat in front of those new brothers and sisters, just don't eat the meat. That's all it's about. Nothing else. Nothing more. Nothing less. So many have confused two separate functions in the body, and now they use that as a means to say no one has the right to judge for themselves. That's what's happening. We don't know the correct definition, so now we're using that passage out of context to mean that no one has the right to judge for themselves anyone else's actions. And that's not what the scripture says. It's just simply not true. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. We'll be looking at verses or chapter 5 and 6. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 5. We'll be reading verses 1 through 5. 1 Corinthians 5, verses 1 through 5. It is commonly reported that there is whoring among you, and such whoring that is not even named among the nations, so as one to have his own father's wife. He's bringing up something that was written back here in the instructions that we received from Yahweh through Moshe. A man cannot have his father's wife. A son cannot take the father's wife, period, ever. It's against the Torah. So who was Yahshua if we're going to be his bride? Look at this. Verse 2, and you have been puffed up and did not rather mourn, so that he who has done this deed would be removed from among you. For I indeed, as absent in body, but present in what was breathed, and many of you are seeing and present in spirit, have already judged. Guess what word is used there? Shaphat. Why? Because he looked at the right rulings in the word, and it says that you can't have your own father's wife. That person is immediately guilty of that. So then we have to make a deciding factor. What does the Old Testament say to do to people like such? Or what is recorded in the history of Yahweh's people? How did they handle these things? He says, I have already shaphat the one who did this, as though I were present. Well, who are you to judge me, Paul? Nobody admonished you. That's what he's getting at here. Nobody admonished you. As a matter of fact, they were prideful, saying it's going to be okay, even though they allowed this this commandment breaker with such sin in his life that is not even commonly reported against people that live in the nations, much less people who know the word. You guys just let him come and go as he please. Nobody's saying nothing to him. Nobody's admonishing him. He says, I've already done it, and I've rightly ruled the situation. I would have already cast him out. That's the authority that we have. We do have the right to shaphat after we use the word to rightly rule mishpat, the situation. And then when we see what the scriptures say, and we find that that person is guilty of what the scriptures say, not what we think, then we have the right to say we must get to what is said to be done. See, the admonishment then is already, that's all off the table. Now we have to rightly rule the situation with judgment, but we can never judge it any further than what Yahweh's word says to judge. He has already judged the one who did this, as though I were present. Verse 4 says, in the name of our Master Yahshua Messiah, when you are gathered together, when you are in the holy convocation, coming to gather yourselves in the presence of Yahweh, these types of things through admonishment must have already have been removed. When you are gathered together, and my spirit with the power of our Master Yahshua Messiah, deliver such a one to Satan for destruction of the flesh, in order that his soul be saved in the day of the master Yahshua. He said, get him out of the body, kick him out, or you guys are going to be judged with him. We already know that the scriptures say that if you indulge with them and do not rebuke them or correct them, that you are partakers in those people's sin as well. Because we didn't admonish, we didn't use the right rulings, we didn't do anything that Yahweh said to do to these people. Oh, but we got to love them. That's all Christian nonsense. If you truly love them, you will follow these instructions, because you see that these instructions of getting rid of them, throwing them out, and then praying for them that Yahweh would show them the truth and lead them in the ways of righteousness, then they can come back into the body through the discernment of the Ruach. But we must follow through with our end of the instructions of Yahweh's words. When we follow through with Yahweh's words, the body is protected. When we don't, the body is at odds with Yah. Your physical body and the body of Yahshua and those around you. And you'll notice here, if you read the rest of this passage, they were going into the time of Passover and unleavened bread. He said a little bit of leaven. Leaven's a whole lump. Get rid of it. Now, moving on, in chapter 6, continuing on this beaten path of judgment, let's read verses 1 through 5 in it as well. Chapter 6, 1 Corinthians, verses 1 through 5. Should any of you holding a matter against another go to be judged, that's number 2919, okay, and that's the equivalent to shaphat in the Hebrew, before the unrighteous and not before the set apart ones. We are supposed to tell the brethren, hey, this is what's going on. We got this situation right here. They said this, now they're doing this, or we said that, and now we don't want to do that. And you bring it to the brethren, and the brethren will use the word and call Yahweh into the council of the problems, and Yahweh would hash it out. The body of Yahshua would hash out its own problems. It says, do you know that the set apart ones, in verse 2, shall judge, and that in the Greek is going to be 2919 again, shaphat, the world, and if the world is judged by you, are you unworthy to judge? This is going to be number 2922. Rightly rule. This is mishpat. See, this is where we see the combination of the two. Mishpat, then whatever Yahweh's word says to do about it, that's what you enforce. When it comes to going into the kingdom, that type of judgment belongs to Yah and Yah alone. Nobody else can get you into the kingdom. Nobody else can allow you to get into the kingdom. Nobody else can give you the right to the kingdom. Only Yahweh himself can give people the right to reign with him in his kingdom eternally. None of us have. Now, we can warn one another, and we're going to be taking a look at those definitions that show us that we are supposed to warn one another, and we're going to go to the passages that prove that as well. Admonish one another. Verse 3, do you not know that we shall judge messengers? That's 2919 in the Greek. So all of them are 2919, which is shaphat in the Hebrew. But this one here where it says, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? See, people would come before Moshe with a matter. People would come to the people who've been appointed by Moshe about a matter. And these things would be rightly ruled. That's going to be Greek number 2922, which is going to go back to the to the process of mishpat, rightly ruling. And many Bibles have not distinguished that. The scriptures many times has, but here they failed to bring that across correctly. They may, in their newer versions, may have corrected it. I don't know. I have the 98 version. If they have, then it just proves what we're seeing. Do you not know that we shall judge messengers? How much more the matters of this life? If then you truly have judgment of this life, do you appoint then as judges who are least esteemed by the assembly? I say this to your shame. So with the mentality that the church has given us, who are you to judge me? You are destroying the process of admonishment that Yahweh has embedded into his word for us to live by, to grow by. What a shame. And that's what Shaul is saying here in verse 5. I say this to your shame. Is it so that there is not one wise one among you, not even one who shall be able to judge between his brothers? That's number 1252 in the Greek. Rightly ruling, a different process. Now, I want to focus in on verse 2 in chapter 6 here. Do you not know that the set apart one shall judge the world? That is a shaphat, 29:19 in the Greek. And if the world is judged by you, are you unworthy to judge? This is number 29:22. Okay, I'm going to pull that up, and we're going to look at its definition in the Greek. If I can find it. There it is. All right. Here we go. Again, the Greek numbers over here in the left-hand column, the broken word for word they provide here in this column. Or not know you that the saints the world will judge. That's 29:19. Remember, I was pointing that out. That means shaphat. And if by you is to be judged, again, 29:19, the world, unworthy are you of cases? See how they didn't translate it as judgment. There's our word for mishpat. When we go to do our Hebrew word studies about this, even modern Greek theologians know that this is pertaining to the case prior to the judgment handed down that Yahweh was speaking about, the authority that he has given us to rightly rule the situations of one another in everyday life and as an Israelite or as in the groups that we're in, the assemblies that we attend, so on and so forth. That's the word. Of cases of the smallest, this is Greek number 29:22, criterion. That's where we get the word criteria in English. See this? Tribunal, court of justice. This is where the process takes place and how it's conducted. Oh, Father. And I suggest to you, because of the lack of the Hebrew understanding, that's why you don't see them put mishpat anywhere as a connection here, because they keep reading the English word for both, judgment. So they have not received the revelation. the instrument or means of trying or judging anything. See, so it's talking about the instrument or the means by which you come to the terms of guilt or innocence, the process thereof, which is mishpat, rightly ruling, using the word to guide. Just like Shaul said, I've already got there. Why haven't you guys? About this person that was committing such fornication and adultery. So there is the difference pointed out even in the Greek text. So now let's get to Shaphat and Mishpat in Hebrew, and then we'll go into the Old Testament, and we'll see how this is definitely, with the Hebrew understanding, we can rightly define what is being said in these passages. And prayerfully, we can admonish one another with this information and stop being so comfortable in our sin and using that old backup to fall on. Well, who are you to judge me? Or the old world famous, why don't you pull the plank out of your own eye? You're not perfect. Who are you to judge me? That is a combative spirit. That is a stiff-necked spirit that is well connected to Israelites, children of Yahweh that were thrown out of the kingdom. And with that attitude, you're going to remain out of the kingdom, because he gave us right rulings to execute and use those things to admonish one another for proper growth, preparing us as fruit. If the fruit ain't done growing, it's not going in the basket at harvest. If the fruit is over ripened, fallen to the ground, and all bruised up because there wasn't enough water, wasn't just enough sunshine, it wasn't just it matured too quick and fell off, and now it's no good. Wherever that may be in your world, we'll leave that between you and Yahweh, but that will be the scenario, that you don't make the first harvest. That's the only two scenarios that can take place or cause that for you not to make it. So Shaphat, Hebrew number 8199. I'm going to read the Strong's definitions for you. $81.99 in the Strong's Hebrew. Shaphat, it's a primary root. That means it's at the top of the root line. So there's other words that stem from this word. It means to judge, pronounce a sentence, that type of judgment. For or against. Why? Because the right ruling has been used, and both people that are standing before you can't be a winner. Everybody claims to be right, but in the end, there'll be one that is found guilty. There'll be one that is found innocent. And there's a way to handle each case as outlined in the scriptures. To pronounce a sentence, and it can either vindicate or cause punishment. And it is used to, by extension, it says it's used to govern. To govern or litigate. It's the outcome of what has been governed or litigated through the process of mishpat. And along the way, before we got to that state, the admonishment could have made all of the difference. All right. And then mishpat is number 4941 in the Strongs. I'll go ahead and read that definition. 4941. Mishpat says it comes from 8199. Imagine that. Properly a verdict, favorable or unfavorable, pronounced judicially, especially a sentence or formal decree, human or participant, divine law. So it's the process of how something is pronounced judicially. It's setting everything up for a sentence or a formal decree. Father, help us to understand so we can bypass all of those troubles. We do not want to be in any more trouble with you. Help us to understand these things. Help us to receive with meekness and humility admonishment. So these types of situations don't, and give us a heart to live out your word, to be kind and gentle to other people, to show them the true love coming from the ahava, the feminine form of the Hebrew word for love, the ahava stemming from your leb, from your heart, not this thing that pumps blood, the leb, the most inner person in your soul. That it be changed. The hardness that used to be there, the rejection and not wanting to listen and not receive admonishment and to be mean toward other people. Help us, Father, to come to you and allow you to, through admonishment, your admonishment and other people's admonishment, create in us a clean heart and renew a steadfast spirit within us so that we can be kind to other people, showing the kindness of Messiah in us that you have granted us. It's all through admonishment that these things, and us accepting it and growing from it, that causes us to be true, genuine believers. So now let's look at these two Hebrew words, shaphat and mishpat. Of course, they're going to be the same root line in your ancient Hebrew lexicon, because we already know that mishpat came from or stems from the root word of shaphat. All right, I'll get that pulled up for us. Here we go. Now, sorry about that. So in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, shaphat is going to be number 2864V, meaning it's being used as a verb. It's going to be on page 463 in your ancient Hebrew lexicon. Here is our word, the three-letter root, shin, pei, tet. Now, remember I was talking how this is going to be used in if the fruit is prepared or not. Notice that in the word shaphat, there's a basket, the picture of the basket at the end there. Remember, Hebrew reads right to left. So we have Shin, Pei, Tet. And that Tet is a picture of a basket. Baskets are used for things to be contained in. Baskets of fruit, or they used to have a basket that they carried around with mud to make bricks. So two different uses, same purpose, to confine things, to keep them confined. So whether you make it into the kingdom or I make it into the kingdom behind Yahshua is already confined in what is written, because it's going to be determined by our fruits. Shin, Pei, Tet. Shin is a picture of two front teeth, meaning either two or to press together. The Pei is a picture of a mouth. It can mean to blow, can have to do with things like speaking, speech, blowing, scattering, if you will. And so this is the type of judgment that is represented by Shaphat. It can either press us together or it can scatter us, and that has something to do with going into that basket, that container. So as a verb, here is the definition of Shin, Pei, Tet, judge, to rule over cases of dispute or wrongdoing. Now, mishpat is the process of that. And if we've reached mishpat and we're heading towards shaphat, that means that the admonishment that comes by the word and the suggestions that your brethren have been making for you, towards you, that you have rejected, all of this pain and sorrow could have been diverted had we just received the admonishment of Yahweh's word, his people, and you better bet his Ruach is involved with the word and the people, not just you and him. You will never cause yourself to be judged. You'll always say he's going to have mercy on me, and forget all about the admonishment. Forget all about the proper growth. No, we need one another for these reasons. Now, mishpat is in the same root line. It's going to be number 2864H. There you see it has to do with the judgment as well. But now I'm going to point out, we see Shin, Pei, Tet, but notice the mem at the beginning. Notice the mem at the beginning of that word. This is where it gets good. So the mem. The mem. Remember, this has to do with the judgment and the outcome of it. But the mem is the picture of water or blood, something that flows through the body, if you will, or through a river. Water, blood flows through the body. So that's why it has the meaning of either blood or water. Well, I don't know where my mem went. Unless it's up here. There we go. The last one I looked at. So here's the mem. Trying to get that. There you go. You see that it can mean chaos, mighty, or blood. Chaos, mighty, or blood. Water The word for water, Maim, water or waters, begins with the mem. Too much water in one place at one time can cause erosion, and the river becomes mighty, and then it's a bad thing. Then you'll notice that it can cause chaos, right? And then you see that it also represents blood. Water and blood represents cleansing. The negative, that's the positive connotation to this letter. The the positive connotation is the water and blood, because that represents cleansing. So if used correctly, the right rulings, admonishment has taken place. We can save ourselves from the right rulings, and you will be judged for instead of against. You will be cleansed instead of purged. Do you understand? And the negative connotation of the mem is chaos. One of two things can happen during the right ruling, the mishpat. You can remember the admonishment of the word or the brethren, and you can throw yourself on the mercy of the court, and the judge can show you favor. Or you can begin to buck against it and say, who are you to judge me? Well, who are they? What right do they have? We have every right to admonish one another in preparation for the kingdom of Yah. Because if we do not, then for you during the Shaphat, you're going to enter into the chaos at the end of Yahweh's judgment, instead of the peaceful cleansing of Yahweh's judgment. Now that we have some Hebrew understanding here, let's see how this is directly connected to admonishment, stemming from what we call the Old Testament or the Tanakh. Matter of fact, let's look at a few passages in the New Testament that will reflect what was said in the Old Testament. Let's go to Romans 15. Same book we started in. We're going to be reading verses 13 and 14. Yeah, we'll lay a Greek foundation as to what's being spoken about here for admonish. Romans 15, 13, and 14. And the mighty one of all expectation fill you with joy and peace in believing, that you overflow with expectation by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit of Yahweh. Verse 14, now I myself am persuaded concerning you, my brothers, that you too are filled with goodness, complete in all knowledge, able also to admonish one another. That Greek word admonish is number 3560 in your Strongs. Listen to this definition. 3560 in your Strongs. It says from the same as 3559. So we're going to read both these definitions because they are related. To put in mind, to put things in each other's minds, reminding you of what is written, comparing the way you're walking to what is written, brother, sister. Whether other people like it or not doesn't even matter. If they don't like your approach, or they feel you should be a little bit more quieter when speaking to them because they don't want to be hurt. They don't want their away with that. Listen to this. To put in mind, by implication, to caution or reprove gently. This is admonishment. And it comes from 3559, and 3559's definition is calling attention to something. By implication, a mild rebuke or a warning. If we can't do that for one another, and you get all butthurt and everything gets all in a bunch because people are trying to help you because they love you and they want to see you go into the kingdom behind Yahshua, then something's wrong. Definitely, more than likely, more than one thing is wrong in your relationship between you and Yahweh. First Thessalonians chapter 3. Excuse me. First Thessalonians 5. And that verse 12. But brothers, we beg you to know those who labor among you and are over you in the master and admonish you, and to hold them in highest regard in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. Honor those who have been doing this a while and who are teaching you these things concerning admonishment. Why? Because if we admonish one another, then it's going to keep us from entering into mishpat and shaphat in the end. But the admonishment is the key here. Us receiving it and helping others with it. Admonishing one another will keep us from entering into right ruling and judgment. Admonishment is one of the least taught, the least, probably the most important, but yet least amount spoken about or taught about word in the whole of our belief system. We need more teachings on how to admonish, what to admonish, how to keep one another from entering into right ruling and judgment. Admonishment is very underrated, if not even known at all, by the majority of the people in our faith. This is sad. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Ecclesiastes 12. Let's begin at verse 10. Koheleth sought to find the teacher, the preacher, sought to find out words of delight and words of truth rightly written. The words of the wise are like goads, and the nails driven by the masters of collections. They were given by one shepherd. And besides these, my son, be warned. Admonishment. The making of many books has no end, and much study is a wearying to the flesh. You want to put your flesh out of commission? Keep studying the word. Keep studying Hebrew. Beat this stuff up like it is your worst enemy, because it is. Verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear Yahweh and guard his commands. Guard his instructions. That's it. For this is for all mankind. For Yahweh shall bring every work into right ruling. There it is. Including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil. You might be able to get away from a brother and sister with that old stuff and fend them off with, who are you to judge me? Yeah, remove the plank out of your eye. Okay. So let it be, if you wish. But here we see admonishment in verse 12, and you see the right ruling stemming from the instructions of Yahweh. Many of you are seeing the word admonish there in the text. It's going to be Hebrew number 2094, and I'm going to read that in closing here out of our Strong's. 2094 in the Hebrew. It's a Hebrew word, zahar, and it is a primitive or primary root, and it means to gleam, to enlighten by caution. If you want to shine, you've got to receive the admonishment, is what the Hebrew is indicating there. Praise Yah. So, obviously, we should want others to admonish us. If we are all heading in the direction of wanting to be obedient, first and foremost, to the one who gave his life to us, for us, or at least a life for us. In my opinion, as a teacher, we need to stay away from the, oh, woe is me, who are you to judge me? Remove the plank from your eye. If somebody is obviously admonishing us and pointing out that we have a problem, how dare us attack that brother or sister? Because all they're trying to do, the majority of us, is not be ornery or mean to you, but to point out that there's something that's going on in your life that should not be going on in a true believer's life. It doesn't have to be spoken about by everybody. It doesn't have to be made known to everybody. We should just keep this as a one-on-one or a group onto one person, where the person doesn't feel like you're trying to slander them or hurt their character in any way. It should be handled in a very way of humility, in a way of humility. So, but obviously, if you know people that are like that, then I would say distance yourself, because until Yahweh gets their attention and they are ready to receive admonishment, they're not ready for the kingdom, to be counted as fruit for the basket at the harvest. That's a given. And so If they want to be judged by Yahweh and him alone, then just be careful how you try to admonish them, because you're going to become the villain in their story. So watch out for these types of believers. Try to lovingly help them. But if they're going to make you the villain in the end, I would suggest you back away from that brother or sister, and let's say call you with a need. And then when they do call you or contact you with a need, be very, very wise how you help them, if you help them, or what you help them with, knowing that they are still not in that position to receive with meekness the words of Yahweh or the words of the brethren. So I do pray the teaching has enlightened many of you, caused other passages to kind of like the lights came on. I do pray most of all that it has helped Yahweh's purpose and his kingdom, because that's where we're all trying to get to. It is my intention to bring blessings to the body of Yahshua through these Hebrew insights. And it is also my hope and prayer that I see each and every one of you in the first resurrection of the dead. Hallelujah. So before I sign off for the evening, I'm going to go ahead and go to YouTube, into the chat section there, and say hello to everybody. If there's any questions or comments that the moderators have seen, please re-type them in there now so that we can see them at the bottom of the feed. Here is our contact information at the bottom of your screen. That is the ministry email address. Then there is the webpage, the website for the ministry. There is the phone number for the ministry. And there is my personal email address at the bottom of your screen as well. Sister Monique, up there in Canada, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom to you and Sister Linda. Grandma Kate, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom to you. Yes, everybody is feeling much better, except for my oldest boy, Malachi. He seems to have acquired a little earache, but other than that, everybody is on the mend. Brother Joe Derival, good to see you tuned in. Thanks for contacting me. That guy is more than welcome to contact me through Messenger. Give him my phone number, email address, whatever it takes. I appreciate you reaching out. Sister Worth, good to see you. Also up there in Canada. Shabbat Shalom to you. Jamie, Teshuvah Tells, good to see you guys tuned in out there in Louisiana. We'll be seeing you for Passover. Brother Don Butler, you guys went through it, getting that motorhome, from what I understand, back to the house. But praise Yahweh, that's what you're going to be making the trip to Passover and unleavened bread in as well. So praise Yahweh for that. Can't wait to see you guys. Levels above devils, Brother Mo out there in Central California now. Shabbat Shalom to you and your lovely family. Brother Hugo, good to see you tuned in, you and your wife. May Yahweh bless you in your home. Sister Janet, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom to you. Yes, Admonishment. Thanks for posting that. Sister Jamie, Sister Joni, we'll be seeing you guys as well. You and some of the crew up there from Arizona. Can't wait to see you guys. Love on y'all. This pay shock is going to be something else, I'm telling you. Charlie and Deanne, good to see you tuned in. I reached out to you guys with an email. Didn't hear back from you. Please contact me. We're going to start getting some potential dates for our trip. All right. Anna Lee, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom. Out there in Arizona. Yep. So it's not just me. Many of you are seeing this defensive and decisive spirit in the body of Yahshua right now. And, coming upon the Moedim or the feast, normally the enemy begins to rear its head up out of the brethren. You'll see their shortcomings. He'll make it known this is their soft spot and they don't see it. Others can see it. They can't see it. We can't see it. And that snake will, unless you know the word well enough and know what to look for, in who to look for it in, and how to identify it, then it'll just come right into the feast. Brother Ron, up there in Canada, can't wait to see you. Prayerfully, your daughter and your sons be able to make it. Shabbat Shalom to you up in Canada. Yeah, it's another good one. 2 Thessalonians 3:15. However, thank you for posting that, Brother Hugo. However, do not regard him as an enemy, but admonish him as a brother. Yep, we need to learn how to initiate this in the body. Actually, we need to ask for boldness to begin to do it, because there's going to be those who, well, you sure have been judgmental lately. They're going to think it's a problem with you. When you're like, no, I'm trying to institute admonishment because the body is said to use it for proper growth, to avoid the mishpat and the shafat. Praise Yah. Grandma Kate, you hit that one right on the head. Tares that have been sown into Yahweh's word, for sure. And those patterns of growth should never end for real. It's another good passage there, Brother Hugo. Colossians 3:16, let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master in songs and psalms and songs and praise and ruach. Brother Walter, good to see you tuned in. Can't wait to hook up to you here in the spring and get some a bunch of work done on the ancient Hebrew text version. Again, we could almost just at any point flip it open and just start pulling up the programs and going to work on it for a couple of weeks. And we should have it, if we put 2 weeks of time into that translation, we should have it looking a lot better for print number 2. Even though they'll need to be probably a 3 and 4, The second printing should be close after spending a couple of weeks together on that project. Crystal, out there in Arizona, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom. Yep. Yeah, and you know, I don't know if you posted a quote there out of somebody's book, Brother Hugo, but so I would like to point out something that he mentioned here. The pictograph for this letter is a picture of waves of water. That's not necessarily definitive. It also has to do with the shape of a river not being a straight line, like the California aqueduct or whatever. It has to do with flowing. But in the ocean, a body of water, correct, that it represents waves in the ocean. But in a river, that is not the case. So, depending on the context, yeah. So I don't know where you got this quote, but it's a partial truth. But different types of bodies of water, it will represent something different. Like the river again, it winds and everything. Chaos is caused by too much water in a river, the erosion, or or a tsunami coming from the ocean. Uh, it says it has the meaning of liquid, water, and sea. Well, if it's being used as a kidron, sometimes they don't have water in them, but that there is some good information here. I don't know where you got that uh, comment from. Yeah, that mem is, I mean, depending on what type of body of water, has so many different meanings, which is very, very like the purpose of water. It has so many different purposes. Uh, amen. Ronald Hosley, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom. Yes, if it's done correctly, it shows how much people really do care about us. Admonishment. Yeah, Ronald, thanks for that input. Admonishing needs to be done respectfully. Okay, yeah. Hugo said it came from Binner's Lexicon. Now remember, there's a lot of things that Jeff has learned since he published that book way back when. Not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying there's a lot more meaning behind it. It's part of the truths about the letter mem. Miss Woods, good to see you tuned in. Shabbat Shalom. Brother Don made it through the storm. Praise Yah. Yep, just bring the. I got plenty of tools here. You bring that broken part with you, and boy, we'll get it back on there. Be camped out underneath that thing here at the assembly. All right. Everybody's excited about Pesach. no matter where you're at, if you would like to attend Passover and unleavened bread here, the majority of the brethren are only going to be here for like the first week. But we do have a room or two, I think one room left, which means 2 more people. Or if you got a family with kids, we can cram all of you in there. But each room, except for the family room, has 2 beds in it. So if you would like to join us, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let us know. We will make room. We have campers. I mean, if you don't mind being out there with a little space heater and a camper, we've got 3 more rooms as far as that goes. And we will make room for you. We'd love to have you. So until tomorrow, may Yahweh bless and keep each and every one of you. I do pray that the word that Yahweh has given me to share with you this evening has not only brought education to the body of Yahshua, but that it has edified the kingdom of Yahweh, and that it has solidified in your mind exactly what the purpose and effectiveness of admonishment is. So until tomorrow, may Yahweh bless and keep each and every one of you, and shalom, shalom.